Hello everyone, if you love epic stories about human grit, ingenuity and history that keep you hooked, you are the great place. Hit the subscribe button, drop a like and share your thoughts in a comment. I want to hear what you think. Today I'm diving into an incredible tale from the World War II, how a Soviet engineer built a fighter plane, the P-3, and just for a day. This isn't just about a plane, it's about people pushing the limits and the face on the possible odds, about war and about making things happen when the stakes are sky high. Let's jump it. So the P-3 story, how the Soviets built a fight plane in 4 days. Imagine in the late 1930s in the Soviet Union, and the country gearing up war. But here's the kicker, some of the smart engineers in the nation are branded as enemies and look it up in special prison like design bureaus called sharashkas. We are talking about brilliant minds like Sergei Korolev, who's later spent the first human into the space, rocket scientist Valentin Glushko, and aircraft designer Vladimir Petlyakov. These folks weren't working in cozy offices. They were underground, with the threat or harsh punishment looming over them. In one of these sharashkas, Petlyakov team began designing a high-altitude fighter called the V-100 in 1938. For its time, this plane was incredible. Its could climb to 33,000 feet, reach speed of nearly 400 miles per hour, and had an pressurized cockpit, a huge deal back then. It was armed with two 20mm cannons and two machine guns, which was seriously firepower. The V-100 took to the skies, and Petlyakov even watched it fly over Moscow Red Square during a parade. Though he was stuck looking out from his prison-like workplace. The Soviet bosses liked the plane, but decided a high-altitude fighter wasn't what they needed. Instead, they told Petlyakov to turn into a dive bomber. That's how the V-100 became the P-2, nicknamed the Pavan, which would become the backbone of the Soviet Air Force during World War II. The P-2, a war hero with flaws. The P-2 wasn't flawless. Pilots complained about its lack of armor and tricky handling during dives. But let's be real, this plane was a trooper. It fought in every major battle of the war, from 1941 all the way to the final clash with Japan in 1945. It was like that dependable friend who not perfectly but always show up when it counts. The P-2 drops bombs, supported group troops, and helped shift the momentum is in some brutal battles. By 1941, though things were looking grim for the Soviets. Nazi Germany bombers, especially their Night Riders, were pounding Soviet cities, including Moscow. The problem? Yeah, the Soviets didn't have enough place to stop them. Their high-altitude big fighter could always get airborne fast enough to catch the German bombers. The Soviets needed something, anything, that could patrol the sky and take down those enemy's planes. That's where the P-3 come in. The Wild Challenges. A fighter in 4 days. On August 2nd, 1941, the Soviet State Defense Committee dropped a bombshells on Petlikov, take the P-2 bomber and tore it into a heavy fighter, and do it in 4 days. 4 days! That's like Atkin achieved to turn a Deliver One into a race car over a long weekend. Petlikov probably thought they were out of their minds, but he had no choice. He knew the P2 like the back of his hand, having already turned the V-100 fighter into the P2 bomber. Now he had to flip it back into a fight and do it fast. So what did Petlikov team do? They got to work tweaking the P2 like crazy. They removed the rear gunner to make a plane lighter. They added 3 extra fuel tanks so it could stay in the air longer, cycling and waiting for enemy bombers. They beef up the machine guns a bit, but the armament was still pretty weak for a heavy fighter. The result was a P-3, a plane that could hit about 330 miles per hour. The 10 bytes slower than the German Bf-109, which was getting a great less light. The P-3 also had almost no armor and didn't pack enough punch to hold his own in dogfight. This plane was rock, not dubbed. It was a quick fix and band-aid to patch up Moscow air defense, but in 1941 with the Nazi practically at the city gates, a held-back plane was better than nothing. Visually, the Soviet gave the P-3 to units already flying the P-2. So the pilots and mechanics will be starting from zero. The P-3 didn't sit around. On October 3rd, 1941, a pilot named Senior Lieutenant Fortov from the 91st Fight Aviation Regiment shot down a German U-88 bomber headed for Moscow. That was the P-3 first victory, and it showed the plane could do something right. It was a game changer, but it helped protect the capital when every plane mattered. The P-3 took to the sky, patrolling and trying to fend off German raids. Still, the pilots weren't happy. The P-3 was slow, undermanned, and vulnerable about proper armor. It was a fight in name only, and the guys flying it knew it. Here where things were even crazy. 2 officers from 95th Regiment, Colonel Pestov and Captain Zletkov, did something incredible bold. They wrote a letter to Gregory Malenkov, a high-ranking Soviet official, and basically said, "The plane is not good, and here how to fix it." In 1941, criticizing Soviet equipment could get in your serial trouble, or worse. But these guys didn't just complain. They laid out specific changes to improve P-3. Amazingly, Malenkov listened. He approved the upgrades, and the result was the P-3Bs. The team got rid of the large glass canopy that made the plane an easy target, added a remotely controller machine gun turret for rear defense, and put something basic armor. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step forward. After Battle of Moscow, the P-3 team as the fighter was short-lived. More of them were turned into training planes for dive bomber pilots or converted in a reconnaissance aircraft, but some P-3Bs plane keep fighting. In 1942, the 91st Regiment was sent the Soviet Northern Fleet, where this plane escorted bombers and attacked German and Finnish positions along the Baltic coast until the war ends. They were flashy, but they didn't their jobs. To understand why the P-3 even excited, let's step back and look on the Soviet Union in 1941. The country was a house. The Nazis had overrun huge swaths of territory, and the Soviets lost about 20% of their industrial capacity. According to historical records, factories were being relocated east to keep them out of German hands, which made building everything, let alone a new plane, its logical nightmare. The P-3 was born out of desperation. The Soviet cult effort to design a new fighter from the ground up, though took the P-2 and made it work. It was also a cost-effective move. A P-2 cost around 300,000 rubles to build, roughly $50,000 in today's money, adjusting for inflation. A German Bf-109, by comparison, were prices equivalent to about $250,000 today. By modifying the P-2, a Soviet saved time and money, which was critical when resources were stretched thin. The P-3 story also highlights the human side of war. Engineers like Petlikov work under intense pressure. Pilots flew planes they knew were flawed, and commanders risked their career to be made better. It's reminded that wars aren't just won with machines. They're won with people who refuse to quit. The P-3 wasn't a legend like the Spitfire or Mustang. It was the makeshift fighter threw together and decreased and phases out when better options came along. But that's exactly why it's worth remembering. It shows what people can do when everything on the line. Today we're amazed by drones and stealth jets, but back then it was planes like a P-3 and the people behind them that keep the fight alive. The story isn't just about history, it's about resilience, ingenuity, and doing whatever it takes. It's a lesson we can all apply wherever we're facing a tight deadline at work or bigger challenge on life. And this story fired you up. Hit that subscribe button and join the crew. Drop a comment below what do you think of the P-3. Want more epic history? Tell me that the topic and the carousel about. You like the comments, keep the story coming. So let's keep exploring the past together. Subscribe now and I catch you in the next one video. Thank you and sorry for my English.